Welcome to the Future Recruitment Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Dan, and for those of you that are new to the podcast, we talk with recruitment founders and entrepreneurs who share insights and thoughts on AI partnerships and the future state of recruitment. This podcast is sponsored by Brellard AI Systems. Brellard works with companies around the world to design, implement, and manage AI systems and business processes to make your company more efficient, effective, and profitable. For a free business process audit, just get in touch and quote Future Recruitment Podcast. But today I'm here with Spencer from Valoris Group. How are you doing? I'll give you a quick little intro, but I'll definitely have to ask you to delve into a bit more in a sec.
No,
But
absolutely.
as a quick sort of intro, Spencer founded Valoris 2.5 years ago after a decade in recruitment, I believe.
Yeah, just over now, shamefully. I'm getting older than what I think, so it's about 12 years now.
It'd be great just to get a bit more of a sort of background on Valoris and what you guys do for those who are listening and haven't heard of you guys before.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been in recruitment for about 11, 12 years now. I've worked for large corporate companies and some smaller SME companies locally, sort of in Hampshire. And I started my career at the ripe age of 19. At that stage, at the time, recruitment was such a massive platform for young individuals to get into and have great earning potential. I started off with no car and a 3 hour journey to get to work and 3 hours to get home afterwards. And you had to be there at 8 a.m. and get home for like 7, 8 p.m. So straight to bed. But it's changed massively over the last few years, especially in recruitment for the earning potentials for the consultants. Before my son was born, about 3 months before, I thought, I want to give it a go. So I had 3 months to get everything together and incorporate and start Valoris Group Limited. And on that journey, it was either make or break. So it started, as most businesses do, especially in recruitment, at home, in my pants, in my bedroom, trying to start a recruitment agency from scratch with a little bit of funding, but not much. We started only with around £4,000 to get everything off the ground. So it really was make or break at that stage. I make it work within the 3 months, or I have to go back into another agency and go back to the grind, so to speak. So at that stage, I wanted a business that would reward the consultants just as much as it did when I first started in recruitment, and actually give people a platform to actually come in, bill, do well, service the clients at a very high standard, but with also a very good speed and quality aspect to that process as well. So we gave it a good shot, and it went from strength to strength. And when you back yourself and you do something like this, it's the proof's in the pudding, so to speak. You can really well do what you put your mind to and achieve it and hit the goals that you've set yourself. So absolutely fantastic first 3 months of the business, and it's just gone from strength to strength as well. So Valoris Group, we partner with renewable energy clients in Hampshire, surrounding, and in the UK. So we specialize in solar PV, air source heat pumps, and other sort of parts of the renewable space. But that's kind of the fundamentals of the business, and where it went from. And we're just over 2 years into the company now, and again growing very strong. And we use a lot of AI processes as well, which are really good at mapping out clients' data, formatting CVs. When I first started in recruitment, we were still getting CVs faxed to us at the time, and people were still writing notes on the back of cigarette packets. And we didn't have all the analytics and capabilities that we do now with the great world of with AI. And I think, Beth coming into the company at this point and into recruitment, you can see massive changes and learning and development. So, for me, we had to format every CV letter by letter and make sure those CVs were plush and great. And now you can get systems to do that for you. We used to have to get faxed in CVs and have to handwrite them back out or upload them to Word ourselves. So the industry's changed over those 11 years, as I'm sure it did, prior to fax machines and everything like that. I remember some of the old school recruiters when I first joined had the old filofaxes still with contacts. So they'd roll their filofax round and find the contact and the lead before it was even uploaded to computers. The industry does change, and it does change rapidly, and Valoris really is much at the forefront of that change, and we can adapt to all the new technologies out there. We're a very agile business, so we take everything on board and listen to the markets. And at the same stage, it can make processes a lot quicker for the clients, a better cost effectiveness for the clients, as well as a better process for the candidates all round. So that was my main vision when we started Valoris, to have something that was good quality at a good price, that also our consultants could earn from. And that was the three main driving factors for the whole business. And then everything else sort of fell into place, and we've gone from strength to strength. We're currently at sort of 4 employees within the company, starting from 1. It's taken 2 years to get there. We've had a few come and leave, and we've had some candidates that came in, not like me, with the 6-hour travels to and back to get to work. And it was only really a 30-minute car drive, and they've come in and they've looked at TikTok reels for 2 hours while they're sat at the desk. It's just a different kettle of fish out there for some of these younger people these days. And Beth's seen the fair share of people come into the business and not succeed, but with the right attitude and mentality. And that's what we look to attain within the company, people that want to push for success, not just for themselves, but for the business and also for our clients too. So that's the main ethos for Valoris, and that's why it was started, and that's what I push to everybody that comes into the business. In recruitment, you can earn more than doctors and lawyers put together if you do it well and you do it right, and there's no shortcuts. There is really no shortcuts to it. We've been close myself personally in the first sort of 9 months, thinking, oh my God, is this going to work? Are we going to survive this month? Is next month going to survive? How am I going to pay my bills and the company's bills? But it really comes down to really setting out goals and mind mapping your months and getting it right, and it does come together as long as you push.
Yeah, I was going to say, very brave man having a baby and starting a company at the same time.
Yeah, it was a tough one. When I told my partner, you should have seen her reaction. She was very concerned, and a lot of the capital that we had as well that we started the company with was selling my car. So I had a nice Audi at the time, and I actually put that up because I had that much faith to back myself. I thought, we can do this. If I just do what I've done for the last 11 years, we can make it work. And it's going to be a little bit tighter with no clients to bring in straight away due to restricted covenants, and no candidates, no database, no CRM, no job boards. I was cutting deals left, right and center just to make it at the cheapest cost, but for the most effectiveness for the first couple of months. And then we just sort of grew, and we're at the point that we are today. And we're hitting back-to-back record months. And a lot of that is thanks to the people that I work with, but also the fast-track training course that we deliver to new consultants that come into the business, as well as the AI tools and systems that we have in place now. 5-10 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to achieve and scale this so quickly. So AI has a lot to do with that. And some companies out there, some recruitment agencies, don't even use AI. And they blacklisted it banned it across the whole company. Companies of 200, 300, 400 staff members that are not allowed to use it to benefit them in the process. And I'm not saying that AI is going to take over from other consultants or making the phone calls and the relationships. It's not. It really isn't. People buy from people, and at the end of the day, an AI can't meet you down the pub for a client visit over a couple of beers and some food when you're taking your clients out. It just won't do that.
Interesting. I was speaking with someone the other day who, again, old school recruitment was back when people were sending letters out and there was no email. And she was saying that obviously the recruitment companies that didn't move over onto email and adopt that new technology, I mean, I'll be honest, there might be some out there, but I've not seen any that aren't using email. So it's probably going to be a similar sort of thing. I guess, yeah, it's super interesting to hear that. Decades of wisdom. 7's not too old as well. That's when I started getting in and we set up a company, so still useful.
Yeah, well, I like to think so. We'll try to. We're not out of the prime yet.
I love
Which
it.
is good.
So I suppose when you were previously in like a few different companies and had the processes you obviously did there, how have those changed now, like specifically then? Because is it still sort of smile and dial,
Well,
or are you leveraging
it
different technologies
is
to
and
help?
it isn't. There are companies out there that are still heavy KPI orientated. I've managed a few sort of managerial positions at some previous companies that manage teams, in effect bidding sort of £1 million plus. And what we found is that there is no secret formula to it. It is a heavily predominant call based industry still. You need to buy commitment from the candidates through the clients. And now what we found more and more, especially with all the AI driven sort of machines out there that can email for you, that can send text for you, that can send WhatsApps for you, that can format CVs for you, that's all well and good, but it will never take away the human aspect. And that's the main tool that we have left. a lot of people went from cold calling or doing dials to emails because they had more of a traction from that. And then people went back to cold calling because everyone was getting spammed with emails. And what we found here is it's a full-on mixture of all of it, but you're always going to have a better success rate if you're on the phone with clients and candidates. Now, we've scrapped KPIs and targets. There's no point making a call for the sake of it. And there's companies out there that do. And there's companies out there that will target you. I won't mention names, but 75 to 100 calls a day, connect or not connect. And they expect quality out of those calls at the same time. But when you dangle a KPI or a target above someone's head, it's not going to push them to do quality calls. It's going to push them to do targets just for the sake of it. And it neglects the candidates and the clients. Recruitment should be back to its grassroots as a consultancy-based first business where you are consulting both candidates and clients. And what we found is there's lots of salespeople out there within the industry that will just hammer the phones to try and push candidates across, push clients to sign deals. And what you find is if you don't have a good rebate period, those candidates drop out and the company ends having to pay money back, you claw and commission back from your consultants. And I didn't like that within the companies that I worked. And I don't believe that's a good platform to grow a business with. We back ourselves well and truly as the only agency in the UK that give a 6-month full rebate period to all of our candidates. You get 12 weeks and it's a staggering scale. We offer a full 100% free replacement back to that candidate if they leave within that time. And that's because we have all the systems in place. We make sure we do all the check-ins for the candidates and grip them as tight as we possibly can to make sure it is the right move for them. And I think, looking back at the companies I've worked with, to your original question before, they don't do that. Consultants are scared. They're scared shitless, to excuse my language, to just hit those numbers, those targets, that billing and try and get 30, 40 grand months. And, it's not sustainable. It really isn't. It's okay if you're on contract. You might be able to get away with it with a good temp desk, but permanent recruitment, the quality drops. So that's why at Valoris, we don't have KPIs. We care about quality-driven targets, not call numbers. And that was the biggest thing I found across all the companies. Some companies, again, locally, you can sit there for 4 years. As long as you hit your 200 calls a week, you can sit there at the desk and get paid a salary, but with no outcome back to the client or the candidates or the business you're working for. So we've decided to try and turn it on its head a little bit.
Yeah, I imagine they're not the top performing companies in the space.
You'd be surprised. What you find is the top 20% of the consultants pay for the bottom 80%. So you have the 20% of the top billers, not abiding by the core stats because they're billing the money and they're getting wavered that. And then they're paying for the rest of the consultants to be in the business to plug away and do sort of, 1 fee a month, but they're pushed to hit their call targets rather than training them to do better calls on the quality side. They're still rushed to make their 100 calls a day, so to speak, which, sounds like a phone center to me, selling phones or something like that. And, their target's high, and that's not a dig to anyone within that industry. That's hard, but recruitment isn't a sales job. But it is. I say it's one of the hardest sales jobs in the world because you've got a commodity that can change its mind. It's not like you're selling something, you give the product away, they pay you, and off it pops. It's something that can just turn around at any stage. So, it's a tough industry. That's why I believe it should be a consultancy-based industry rather than a sales focus.
Yeah, absolutely. And what do you, traditional, I know there are a lot of recruitment companies out there that just want the placement and that's it. In terms of consultancy, are you trying to delve in a bit deeper with the company and offer advice on different areas?
We, as a minimum, we do all the benchmark for the salaries for that company in the area. So we go out to 100, 200 engineers in that area and we look at their competitors. We look at what their price marks are and what they're fighting against, what the struggles are within the business. We look through their contracts as well of offer. And this is all within the first opening week of bringing a client on. We meet them face to face or over Teams. So we actually get an understanding of their company. We understand a lot more about the business and just the role, how much it pays and what the fee is going to be at the end of it. The fees are nice. We actually can offer quite an agile price for different companies because we can offer flat fees depending on who we've got in that area. But we offer everything. We even get open diary books with most clients so we can book them in ourselves when they're free. So they trust us in effect to do the first stage interviews, like you should be doing as a consultant. And then at that stage, we're booking them into their diaries. So some clients ask, don't even need to see CVs anymore. They trust our judgment just to make sure that those candidates we're doing our due diligence to make sure they are good enough to be booked in for interview. Yeah, we do the full 360 process rather than just being a CV vendor. You know, most of these agencies will send a CV, won't chase up, won't follow up, don't have the contact points with the candidates, and just say, oh, they haven't come back to me, they haven't emailed back, they're not interested. Well, you're not doing your job, really, when you were doing that sort of CV vendoring stage. It's like a transactional piece rather than a full recruitment process.
Good. Completely agree. Completely agree. And how's like a lot of this data that you're looking to pick out, especially for your clients on the consultancy side? Have you been leveraging AI and different AI products and services in that side?
So we actually use quite a lot of AI, and I won't name all of it, but there's obviously the biggest one out there at the moment, which I think everyone knows. It's OpenAI for ChatGPT, and I think that's probably one of the best tools that have come out within the recruitment market for quite some time. And it can do a lot. It can do a lot of deep research and a lot of market mapping, but you have to provide that data to it. And you have to make sure it connects in the right way to certain policies and GDPR issues. But if you can utilize it in a way that can benefit us and the client, then we do. We sometimes use it to proofread. We sometimes use it to look at market trends, market analysis, and you can feed 1,000 news articles, 1,000 engineers' details into that sort of process, but only details in terms of salary bandings, locations, and things like that. And it can bring out some wonderful documents and sort of things that you can then present to the client, as long as you tweak it well and brand it well with everything that's actually factual. Yeah, OpenAI is a great tool of recruitment at the moment, and it's great for data. You know, it sifts through all the rubbish and gives you the factual points, but you do have to double check it because, you know, like anything, it can make errors.
Yeah, it can have a wobbly.
Yeah, it can, for sure.
Nice. And I completely agree with you. There's a human business, and it still needs that human interaction. Even if AI can do a lot of the process, there needs to be someone at the start in sort of stage one. Maybe stage 2 to 9 can be automated or semi-automated, but stage 10 again, you have to have someone there to bring it
Absolutely.
home from a personal perspective. I guess
Yeah, you
with
do.
all the processes and the bits you've been able to automate, if I had a sort of magic AI wand, where would you automate or get AI to streamline some of your process?
What we found is a lot of what I found is most good billing consultants get stuck on administration. Administration is the killer of billings. If you take 10 minutes to format a CV or 15 minutes to format a CV and you're doing 2 CVs a day, that's half an hour if it takes you 15 minutes. And some consultants, it does. It really does if they're perfectionists and they want to get everything down to a T, especially if the candidate's giving them new information that the CV hasn't been updated for. You know, that's half an hour a day. That's 2.5 hours a week that you could have made calls or done more business relevant, critical things as a consultant. Anything on the administrative side, I think, is a key focus for AI within recruitment businesses. But again, you have to make sure there's no room for margin of error with those types of roles as well. So, for instance, if it is formatting CVs, what we've tend to do is every CV that we send out to clients, Valoris Group branded, it comes in exact same functionality and features and in sort of the summarized skill sets and actual data on the CV. And that will go to every client in the exact same way. And we've tweaked it to make sure it does that. And it does it right every time. So our CV cut time has gone from 5 minutes down to about 30 seconds. So CVs being put together for sends to clients, we know they're in a very good sort of format. We know they're tight, all the relevant information's on there. And I think, you know, that's saved a lot of time. And it's things like that that can save time for a company that can focus on delivery to consultants, for the consultants, to the clients and candidates is just a godsend.
Yeah, absolutely, completely agree. There's some great tools out there as well that you can link together. So you got pop it in an email one end, it comes out, does a few bits for you, pops it back over or through to the client, especially on the admin side. I completely agree. You just want people on the
Yeah.
phones talking. Admin's the
Yeah,
board.
and that's the main thing. And I think it's going to get more and more powerful. Yeah. I think it's going to get more powerful with the AI tools that we use as well. And it's just going to make life so much easier.
Yeah, indeed, indeed. How do you do you leverage it at all for, I don't know how you do your sort of client outbound, or if it's more word of mouth, or if you've got like an outbound process to help with? bring in new clients?
So we do. We have used a set of select tools that connect through a program called Zapier. We can interlink it with different integral programs that we use, so it all communicates as one functionality. LinkedIn can talk to Gmail, which can talk to Lusher. Now, these things, if you don't know them, Lusher is a data collection point for emails and phone numbers of anyone on LinkedIn, if it's on there. So you can then trigger client lists and things to pull it through and bring it together for users BD tools. But again, we'll use it, but we have to make sure that it's being actioned in the right way. So a lot of these tools are pulled together. Again, the human element of that has to be so controlled, because again, you don't want things being sent out to customers and clients that aren't right, or you're going to sound like a fool when it says something silly to someone on LinkedIn and it's not quite right, which is probably happened to us when we sent emails to the wrong people. But it does have that functionality of human error. But yeah, we use a whole plethora of tools at the moment, and that on hand can be about sort of 5 or 6 tools that we use.
Yeah, you're completely right. I've seen so many emails that have come through that are exactly the same, written exactly the same way, and you just know that by ChatGPT, how's it going?
Yeah, there's certain things that you can see as well, like when an email comes through, you get those long dashes, and that's only ChatGPT uses those. So you can see most of everything posted on LinkedIn now has been done by ChatGPT 80% of the time, and you're thinking these platforms again saturated with AI. Again, the time and time and time and time again, you can spot these little fluctuations in a LinkedIn post or an email that you just know as a user yourself, it's come from ChatGPT. So eventually it's just going to be AI talking to AI, which is absolutely hilarious. But that's why being on the phones and having those personal relationships is so much more important.
Yeah, do you think that's going to be the future of recruitment? Are we going to there's AI SDRs out there now that are chatting to people on the phone?
Yeah, well, you know what? We looked into one, and I did, and it was a company based in Ireland. Great company. They offer free demos and free trials of these software systems where it can replicate your voice, or it can have a human sort of voice, and it can call everyone on your database, and it can call up to 1,000 people within 60 seconds. Bring 6,000 people in 60 seconds. And you're thinking, bloody hell, that sounds fantastic. And it can ask a preset list of qualifications or questions it needs from that candidate to then put it through to an actual person within the office. It's expensive. You're looking at sort of they charge per minute or per call, and there's different platforms for these things. But I thought eventually that again is going to be one of those tools that companies will use for lower end roles or roles that are just bulk fills that need something like that. But at the same time, when people get fed up again, like when you call the bank and you speak to an automation process, or your Virgin Media or your car insurances, and you press 1, press 5, press 6, people don't want to speak to a robot. They want to speak to people. And I think, again, when that saturates the market on those API sort of call systems, I think, again, people are going to want to speak to people, not to a robot, no matter how well it gets. That maybe if it becomes superhuman and can answer all the questions and take all the best recruiters' brains in the whole world and dump it into some sort of system, then maybe I'll be a little bit scared for my job. But at that point, it can't take the client out for a round of golf. So until they put it into a robot and it can play golf, then I think we might be okay still.
Exactly. It's going to automate all of the boring processes and maybe the calls, and then recruiters will just be playing golf and going to the pub all day.
Well, that sounds like a great time, but no, I think I think you still have to have those personable relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. So it comes back to that consultancy side rather than just being a number and just placing people, making calls, having that
Yeah,
edge.
agreed.
How what's sort of the future of Valoris Group looking like then? How are you enhancing your consultancy side and becoming more consultative with clients, as well as leveraging
So
obviously the newest AI tools?
yeah, we market map a lot on new tools that come out. We go to a lot of job fairs and a lot of events that will host these new tools that are coming out to market. So we keep an eye on it. and we like to jump ahead of any curve and test things, trial things once a month as sort of a day-to-day to sort of look at these benchmarks and see if we can actually use them or improve our current systems. I'm very much a believer of sort of a Kaizen methodology where we remove any waste from the process and keep the business quite agile at all times, so we can adapt and we can use tools as and when and implement things as we can. But for Valoris Group, we are very much building on the consultants we have. And we very much want to give everyone here the right tools to be able to grow their own desks or their own businesses, just as it should be. We don't want resources. We don't want people there that are just doing numbers and calls for the sake of it. So everyone here has a very good pathway into recruitment to run their own teams, to run their own ownership of clients and businesses that they can bring on themselves, as well as using the tools that we can implement. So for someone, say for me, Beth's come in and she is achieving what I would have achieved at 5 years in 3 months, just based on the systems that we now implement. Everything that's on a Kanban board. We use some of the top cutting edge sort of CRMs in the world right now, but you get companies that didn't foresee or want to adapt to these kinds of changes. So a lot of these companies are tied into databases that they can't unsubscribe from. They can't move all the data points to a new system. They can't export 20, 40,000 clients, candidates, and bring them into a new CRM. They just can't do it. Or if they do, it costs them 10, 20, 30, 40,000 pounds for IT engineers to do all this stuff. So again, we can adapt to any changes in the market. And I think that's what's great about us, because we're so agile. We can just move the business to where it needs to focus, and anything new that comes out, we can definitely adapt to it. So I think that's one of the greatest things about Valoris Group. More so, is people. The people are the cornerstones of the company, and without them, we wouldn't have a business. So the people that we bring in, they're all great.
Yeah, sounds awesome. I completely agree as well. It's going to be those smaller, more agile companies that are going to be able to take full advantage of this AI wave that is coming and is already here. And a lot of those slightly bigger orgs with slightly slower processes are going to be the ones to get hit.
Yeah, it's not. I can see things sort of changing in the next 5 years, and I think any recruitment agency now that uses AI, automation, and some of the better processes out there are definitely going to deep dive into sort of new plateaus of success as soon as everything's implemented, streamlined together. You can just see it coming.
Excellent. And I guess, yeah, an interesting one for you as well. If there's anyone listening that is looking at starting a recruitment business like yourself, who's done maybe a decade of recruitment and looking at jumping in, what advice would you give them, apart from maybe not doing it when you've got a baby?
Even if they do it. If you trust yourself and you can back yourself, even if you haven't got the financial control immediately, it's one of those things that a little bit of short-term pain to set yourself up for long-term gain is worth it. Do you want to be sat there doing the same thing for another business that doesn't treat you well, doesn't pay you right, and has no career progression? Or do you actually want to start and carve something out for yourself to make it better for others that come into the industry? And if you can just scrape enough together to sustain you for 3 months, do it. Absolutely do it. Jump with both hands and really push.
Awesome. And just sort of wrapping up, for anyone who's listening and wants to get hold of you, how do they get in touch?
Yeah, of course. So we've got Valoris Group, so valorisgroup.co.uk. We're also on Instagram as Valoris Group, also Facebook and LinkedIn as well. Anyone that's looking, even in the Hampshire area, to maybe move into recruitment as well, we'll set you up for a phone call, especially if you're looking to make a move into a company that prioritizes the consultants, candidates, and clients. But also, if you can call us on the phone at any point through anything, yeah, all the other sort of normal means as well. So, yeah.
Excellent. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Spencer. Thank you
No
very
worries.
much for jumping on. Everyone else, thanks for listening, and see you next time.
See you next time.